I'm Nathan Gonzales with Inside Elections. Congratulations on making it to Super Tuesday. It's been fun being here in Miami with the Public Affairs Council at the annual PAC conference, digesting last night's results with members. And I think I'm trying to remind myself that this is where we thought we were going to end up. The story was about the Biden surge, but Joe Biden has been the front runner in this race since he entered it. We knew he was going to struggle in Iowa, in New Hampshire, and even Nevada. We knew he was going to do better in South Carolina. But as we hit each of those steps along the way, I think we underestimated the media narrative and the momentum swings that would be going back and forth. Even though there's certainly no guarantee that Vice President Biden will be the nominee, I think it's clear that the momentum and the narrative of the race has changed. I still expect that the nominating fight will go to the convention, but it's also important to remember that when we get to November, Democrats are going to be united behind defeating President Trump. And Republicans are underestimating his ability to rally the Democratic Party. And since we're here in Miami all together, I thought it would be great to take questions from council members. I'm here with Ellen Locke of Nationwide.
So Nathan, I know a lot of our PAC members are wondering, where does Bloomberg go from here?
Well, Bloomberg, it's clear that money can't buy every election. It might be able to buy you a House race, but it's clear it can't buy you a presidential race. I think the big blow for Bloomberg on Super Tuesday was that he didn't win any states. He won American Samoa. He won some delegates, but he wasn't able to win states. And ultimately, I think he made a business decision. But it's clear that Bloomberg has an interest in advancing the Democratic Party. He was extremely involved in the 2018 midterm elections. I think his group deserves credit for winning at least a handful of House races that the Democratic Party probably wouldn't have won otherwise. I think the indications are that he's going to keep going and being involved in this race, even if it's not as a candidate. Keep his offices open. His team is still going to be paid through November, and I think that he will be influential in the race, even if it's not as a candidate.
Thank you.
I'm here with Julian Cosgrove of the Healthcare Distribution Alliance.
All right, Nate, what will happen with the progressive wing of the Democratic Party should Bernie not win the nomination?
It's a great question, and the short answer is it's not going away anytime soon. I know that this is probably considered a disappointment for those particularly who have been on Bernie's side, or they might be supporting, they love Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but it's not going away. And even if Democrats win, maybe particularly if Democrats win the presidency and win the Senate, I think that progressive movement is going to be influential in the policy discussion, in the legislative agenda. Because whether it's Ocasio-Cortez's victory or other primary challengers that have come up short but have kind of pushed some more moderate members to the left, they have influence, and they have some Democratic members are scared of getting that primary challenge from the left. And so I see it as very similar to the Tea Party movement. The Tea Party movement, I would argue, wasn't really a majority of the Republican Party, but it was a loud and influential part of the caucus that helped drive the legislative agenda.
Thank you.
I'm here with Madison, Edgar, Crowe of Comcast.
Nate, after 2016, I think we all vowed to expect the unexpected and never be surprised in 2020. What could happen between now and November that could actually surprise you?
Well, it's true. The rule of thumb should be to rule out ruling things out. I would be surprised if this presidential election ends up being a blowout. I think we have a fundamentally divided country, maybe a more partisan country than we want to believe that we actually are. And so even if the final result in the Electoral College ends up being wider because states swing one way or the other in the final result, I think we're going to have a close and competitive race. So I would be surprised if we see one candidate able to distance themselves. I'd also be surprised if control of the House of Representatives comes into to being in play, that it's right there on the cusp. I believe the presidential race will be competitive, the Senate's going to be competitive, but I think there would have to be a dramatic shift for the House to come into play. And now I'm here with Doug Pinkham of the Public Affairs Council.
Nathan, so glad to have you with us, both for the PAC conference and your speech, but also for sticking around to give us some post-Super Tuesday analysis. Everybody's talking about the presidential race, obviously, and Biden's resurgence and what's going to happen next, who might drop out. But what about all the congressional races? Because a lot happened last night and is continuing that isn't getting a lot of news right now in terms of the House and Senate.
Well, Doug, I'm glad you asked, because you know that I have a deep love for down ballot races. 3 Senate races, 3 Senate primaries took place on Tuesday in Alabama. Jeff Sessions, former Senator Jeff Sessions, has moved to a runoff with former Auburn football coach Tommy Tuberville. The president's relationship with Sessions has been strained, and that was stressed again by the president on Twitter on Wednesday morning. We'll see, but a Republican, either Sessions or Tuberville, is going to have an advantage over Doug Jones in the general election. In North Carolina, Cal Cunningham, the former Democratic state senator, will be the nominee to take on Tom Tillis. Republicans spent a few $1 million meddling in the Democratic primary, trying to have a different result, but Cunningham is the nominee, and that's one of the key races for watching who will control the Senate in November. And then in Texas, there's a fight to see who will take on John Cornyn. MJ Hagar, the 2018 House candidate who kind of went viral, she's in the runoff. We're not sure yet who she will meet in the runoff, but either one of the Democratic candidates who is the nominee will start as the underdog against Cornyn in a race that would have to evolve to really become into play.
So one more question about the presidential race, but this also covers the House and the Senate. So depending on who gets the nomination on the Democratic side, whether it's Biden or Sanders or whomever, but probably one of those two, are we going to move in lockstep between the results at the presidential level and what happens, say, in the Senate? Is there a scenario in which they would go opposite directions and perhaps the Democrat would win, but the Republicans would hang on to the Senate or vice versa?
Well, we're certainly looking at these races through the prism of 2016, when the presidential result and the Senate results matched up in every state. And so that should be concerning for Cory Gardner of Colorado or Susan Collins in Maine, who are running in states that the president might not win again, or Doug Jones of Alabama and Gary Peters of Michigan, who are in states that the president might win again. But we also have to remember that the White House result and the Senate control are tied together, because if Democrats are able to win the White House, that decreases the number of Senate seats by one that they need to control, because the vice president will be the tiebreaker. And so these are they're individual, distinct races that are going to get attention, but there's certainly a connection with the final results.
Great. Thanks again. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm here with Madison, Edgar. That's not even the hard part.